hello, good afternoon, good morning. This is Fanny Menardi. I hope you're having a great day. And I wanted to record another video, especially for you. This is my fourth application to a job at the United Nations. So this one is for the proofreader and editor position. So as this is the last one I want to apply to, there's many jobs actually that passionate me. I'm enjoying the recruiting process to see all of your missions around the United Nations and following on Instagram and Facebook, even on your website, everything that's going on in the world. I've been very interested in politics, and even though the position I'm applying right now is for this content creation, right? Graphic design. This is something I've been doing for the past 10 years, creating books, creating articles, creating flyers out of my art, anything started to evolve into something more multidimensional around consciousness, and then branch out to science and politics, culture, and defending the culture of the indigenous people and all of that. So I wanted to tell you right now my order of preferences and my plan of action, my strategy or career plan, however we want to call it, for the United Nations, maybe to help you as well decide what's best, as I have many applications. So my first choice, if I had to pick, I would love to work as a social affairs officer for the defense of the indigenous people and communities, because this is what really started my passions on all this art, the symbols, the languages. I was a languages teacher when I was in Peru, and in Bahrain I got to meet the Muslim culture and a lot of people from India, from any countries in the Gulf. So I learned a lot from their traditions. And also when I came to America, I saw the lack sometimes in understanding, I would always remember, this is the first thing that shocked me when I came to America, this man that was watching, a show, the news on TV, and there was the President Obama, and he was like, oh, look at this guy. And I was like, wow, what's going on? And it's like, oh, I'm sure he's a Muslim. And I was like, okay, and so what? Even if he was, he couldn't be a president, and for them, it was like all the Muslims are terrorists. So this is how I started to see how the gap of culture, even though this country is supposed to be the melting pot, and then I started creating those books, those articles, to open the mind of the people for the differences, the complementarity, because in one generation, the world can completely change for the best or for the worse. And right now everybody speaks English, most of the world, but the people who, everything is so related. This is crazy. Everything is so related, because if a family is in the forest or in a village and their land is being taken by the mining companies or by the wood manufacturers, or by the global warming, the animals are disappearing and stuff like that. So it's not so much that they're poor, they supposedly have everything they need in their environment. The medicine comes from them, from the jungle, from the indigenous people, that then we reproduce the molecules to apply it to mass production for the pharmaceuticals, because we need that, of course. But because of that, they become poor, because the environment is changing. So this is not so much that they're in poverty, it's that they need to have their habitat protected. So this is a topic like the environment, and then the change of technologies with, now the rockets and the cars, all of that is accumulating, and now we have solar panels. And this is great because they're starting to do incentives all over the country to encourage people to put solar panels on their houses. But my question when I had a specialist come here was, is this really sustainable? How is it going to be in 50 years when we have a new technology? Because a lot of scientists nowadays, they're talking about free energy. So research of Nikola Tesla, who pretty much, they say he blew up his lab because the energy that he found was so strong that it needs to be controlled. And I believe that they already have this technology. But what's blocking, and even Nassim Haramein from the Resonance Science Foundation, he says that it's not even 50 years, it's in 2-3 years that this is going to come out. I believe that what's blocking us is the transition. Now that everybody has electricity, everybody has a certain system, the power plants and everything, we're saying, hey, now we have a clean technology, we're not going to need the oil anymore. How are we going to transition on this? And now we're starting to implement the solar energy, but is this really what's going to be already in 2-3 years? So should we just skip that to the next before we start producing solar panels? Because I asked the professional who came here, I told him, what happened to the panels after they are gone, in 50 years? And the first one couldn't tell me. He's like, oh, well, some companies, they just throw them in the landfill. And the other guy, he's like, oh yeah, we have a very strict recycling company. We send everything back to the factory and everything. So these are important questions to ask, because 50 years from now, we might be saving now, but 50 years from now, it's a new problem that we're, new legacy to our generation is more problems. So these are all kind of topics that are so interrelated and that came up while I was painting the art and promoting, the cultures and all of that, that I became more and more, of course, I love to create the content. I would love to work as a proofreader, but the truth is I have a lot of content that I could give you. Literally, I would give everything to the United Nations. If you hire me as a social affairs officer, I could start working with your graphic designers team and give them all of my articles, all of my books, all of my content that are about Bahrain, Lima, environment, cultures, problems, politics, all of that. And they can proofread it and they can publish it, from United Nations, and there's sign my name as the author. But I would love that for people to read those. I've been creating those over the past 10 years, but I didn't have time. I've been by myself. I didn't have time to have a marketing team. I was creating. I did the minimum of marketing, but my business has not been profitable because I've been by myself and doing all that. So that would be an honor for me to provide this content that's available already. And so I don't have to work as creating a lot of new digital art and everything. Of course, I can do anytime if necessary, but I would also like to address more of these topics with the experts, with the specialists. And this is what I liked about those social affairs officers position, is that I could use my networks that I've encountered all over the journey. So every time I would write an article about science, I would contact the Resonance Science Foundation or the Naval Postgraduate School, or when I wrote an article about NASA, of course I sent it to the NASA Space App International Space Challenge. So like that, and by applying to jobs all over the place, I developed that network. And now through the United Nations, I would love to bring people together and have representatives of indigenous communities as well to bring their voices. And so this is at a massive level, but the massive change also comes from the individual. So I'd love also to go to the communities and lead workshops, or just talk about, how sometimes the indigenous people, they idealize, so the children, because of that poverty created by progress, they need to go to the cities to work and help out their families. And this is how in one generation the language disappears, so I'd like to tell them, as a European lady, go there and be like, because they over there they like to have like the Nike t-shirt, Michael Jackson, even in the middle of the jungle, because they admire the Western culture. And I want to go there and tell them, as a Western, European lady, I want to know about your culture. This is the thing that you guys need to teach us, your medicine, your shamanic remedy. Because when you go to a city nowadays and you start talking about this shamanic stuff, they these drug people, or these hippies, this is already categorized when this is actually where the medicine comes from. This is how shamanism is, where the shamans were in contact with nature, and the plant tell them the remedies. They tell them how to cure that, and by the studying the animals. What do the animals eat when they're sick? What do they do? When the animals are sick, they fast for 3 days. They fast for a week. And we do the complete opposite. When the kids are sick, we're like, oh, you need to eat to get... No, because when you're eating, you're feeding the virus. So when you're sick, the actual fake belief that we have is that we need to eat, when actually you need to completely reboot your system and fast. And when my son, when he's sick, I don't force him to eat, because I know that he's rebooting his system. But anyway, so these are lots of topics, and through my own experience, as well as of creating a small business with art or financial survival, all these topics, you see that it's all in my encyclopedia. I've talked about it in my previous videos as well, but this is 300 pages of my trips to Egypt, my paintings, the symbols around the world, my first meeting with Machu Picchu, brands that I support, books about spirituality and consciousness, geometry, the masterminds, platforms where people can upload. So I would go and teach how to create your small business, how to bring it online. How do you start? You first can go to a market. And all this is from questions that people have asked me. I have a friend, she's an artist, and she told me, how do you start your small business? Oh, well, you start by going to partnering with a restaurant, and they invite their network, and then you go to a market, and then you work with a gallery, and all of this stuff, step by step, you know? So yeah, the financial, the technology, also... So yeah, and the Rainbow Bridge, of course, so the fulfilling of this prophecy of Pachacuti, you know, the alliance of the eagle and the condor, so the two Americas. So this is really what I believe I was sent for in America, is to work with you and to bring these two cultures together with easy words. And, you know, even my art purposely is very simplistic when people look at it, because I want people to know that it's not complicated, and you can still find a lot of meaning, and it's still very detailed. It's the attention to detail, and yet when you look from a higher standpoint, you can see a bigger picture. It's something different, and this is the same vision of life. So yes, there is so much that I would like to work on with you, and bringing the scientists and the governments together. Also, you know, when I look at the news, I see what's going on at the United Nations. I looked at videos, what's going on in Russia. I saw the speech from Vladimir Putin about the nuclear weapons, and now everybody's meditating for peace and against the nuclear weapons, and behind our back, they're building more nuclear weapons. Even America, even France, even Russia, you know, publicly they fight each other, but I'm not sure they're actually working together. They exchange, they train together. I know for a fact, because I was married to a military, and I know that Russia and America for a fact, they train together, you know, with nuclear equipments and stuff like that. So this is what created polemics. And then I saw your conference about the criminalization of communication. I'm an expert on that topic as well. I've helped the FBI solve 2 cases of terrorism just by seeing pictures on the media. And right away, I was like, this is obvious. It's like the truth is always in plain sight, because, you know, people leave clues. This is how they communicate, through the media. This is fast, but only if you know you can see it, and or if you train your eyes to look at these details, you know. So I'm a specialist of that as well. I can train. I would love to actually train your own team to do this training. Okay, this is a training that I would love to go do with the tribes, the communities, even the government. Train them how to recognize the first time I created that, it was especially for the Navy. Because of that, I wanted to train the Navy to recognize symbols and subtle communication to counter terrorism. So this is when I started that, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to expand it to more topics to reach out to more people. But then once they've mastered the training, they can buy the book for their teams as well, and they can conduct the training. This is why I created it, so people can then, I'm not the only one who can do the training. Other people can get the book and train each other, and it's like teaching a language all around the world. It's going to be the language of symbols and communication and stuff like that. When I wrote you a full report about all that, because it's going to be really long, but I saw what's going on with the chemical weapons in Syria, as well, how people always use communication, beautiful communication, very polite, but to say stuff that are just inconceivable, like, I don't know, for example, when the Syrian representative was saying, well, it was very intrusive for us that you sent your investigators to our country, even though we were really happy to welcome them. But we want them to stick to the report that we give them. How is that an investigation if I'm going to give you all the information that I want you to know? I mean, you can tell where is the manipulation when you learn to identify the language. So, I used to be very naive. I believe in kindness. I still want to believe in kindness and innocence, and that people are really genuine and truthful. But my experience proved me that it's not the case, that some people are really crazy or doing things that they believe is right, or because they want to keep the power, or to hurt other people. People actually really do it. And this is actually, I think, a quality to have, to know that, because from being very naive and, when you're trying to do the good around you and be loving all the time, you don't believe. Even my friends, when I would tell them my stories, they wouldn't believe me. They would tell me, you're crazy, you're making stuff up and stuff. And even I would be like, no, I don't believe this, until I realized this happens, and just like abuse in the household, things that you don't really understand until you have lived it, and I realized how many women around the world are being abused at home, or stay locked in situation where they can get out of because they don't have financial freedom. And this is important that we give them the tools or the support to find that, through all this network. This is my kitty, beautiful. Through the network that I have put in my book, people that have helped me a lot all along my journey to keep going, and until right now, today, talking to you, So if they've done that for me and helped me go through, they can do it for so many people. And also, there is this invisible alliance that we've built through social media, through everybody, that is amazing, because if I work with you, it's like this TV presenter position I applied to. This would be really fun for me. I would love to do that sometimes. It's not my first choice though, because I can already do that from my own social media, and I'd rather be at the table making the decisions with the governments, with the organizations, with the actors, and take part of the conversations. But relaying then the information to my own network, branching out, and they have millions of followers. I'm talking about the NASA, the Masterminds, the Naval Postgraduate School, the Resonance Science Foundation. I'm probably forgetting a lot, but million spiritual TVs and knowledge and stuff like that, millions that branching out to their own network, so the information can enter people's minds subtly, because the change comes from inside the homes. And maybe this is what COVID brought to us, is that instead of having our local group of friends and range of action, we got to open windows to the world through bringing everything online. And now we're able to reach people inside of their home all around the world. So this is actually taking our weaknesses and all the depression also that has been created through COVID to our advantage, right? When the empire fights back, because believe me, there were abuses. In France, this was unacceptable. What happened when they were making fake announcements or fake events to scare the people on TV, to force them to stay home on top of COVID, to implement unlawful regulations, and people would go outside and they would get fines, and people got depressed, really, really, really depressed, you know. And once you're in that state, you don't want to go outside. You don't want to make a change. You might have some people who don't believe in the future generation, who are hopeless. I mean, and I am too, and I have everything to be happy, but it's, you know, we need to find this pleasure in reconnecting as well and building the trust and so on. So I think I would be really good for that, to go and meet with people. You know, I can be really kind, and I can also be really direct and firm when it's got to, you know, but put people in trust, and I think, yes, loyalty and trust and respect and friendship and love, and this is the most important things that we need to bring back around and make people feel heard and important. So all these indigenous people, you know, I want them in New York City. I want to see their stores then. I just don't want to see manufacturers and big brands, you know, and see these Mexican guy, you know, on the street, you know, with his stuff fork, like, hey, what do you want, you know, like he's an imposter. We need to make people feel like it matters, you know, it matters, all of that. The sun behind me, you see, this looks like just a simple circle, but this is the god of the sun, the most important god of the universe. For the Inca, the god of life. Without sun, you can't have life on earth. You can have plants, you can have trees, you can have light. All these little things, you know, being considerate about all this stuff, and then that turns back to solar energy and all of these topics. So yeah, I think yes, so this is the plan that I would love to create with you and together. And of course, any projects that you have going on and that you want me to take part of, I would be very happy to take part of this. But I also want you to know that I have a lot to bring already of content that is ready, and I'd love to work with your proofreading team as well, and bring all this content, and then train the teams, train them to train other people, and go to communities and gather and work together. So thank you for listening. I hope I get to hear from you soon. So this is my last application, because otherwise I was going to apply to 15 jobs, and I know you have hundreds. So you know, and actually by reading all my applications, the one that was designed for me, I believe, is that one, you know, the very first one I applied to, for working with the indigenous people, because this is my specialty. I'm European, but I'm Peruvian at heart. I'm the both worlds in one, you know, and I can understand both. I understand when I see the governments, I understand why it's a challenge to change a nuclear or a system, capitalism, or the Second Amendment. Oh my God, I forgot to talk about that. The Second Amendment, you know, this was written in the Constitution in the 18th century, 1776, sorry, or 1776, yeah, for the independence, or shortly after. Sorry, because in France it's a different year. But we still have that, and the school system is still the same, and we have mass shootings. America is the only country where we have mass shootings still, and if we would remove the guns, people would be crazy in the street. Why people want to protect themselves? Because we don't trust each other. This is the problem of society, And I know that it's difficult for a government to change things that have been implementing from century, to change that from a day to another. But don't think we're stupid either. If you want to transition, you're not going to build more of it. Okay, if we want to transition, we're slowing down. We're not building more of it and say it takes time because it's been here forever. So the first step is to open up the conversation with the scientists and see what is the next technology, the most efficient technology, and what is the plan to transition. Then establishing a list, I talked about in my previous video, establishing a list of all the nuclear weapons, having representative of each countries, really working transparently. Because if our goal is to have peace, not war, we don't have to hide anything from each other. We share the resources, we share the technology, we share the strategies, and it becomes a global strategies while preserving our complementarity and our traditions. But if there's no more war in the world, the military can become humanitarian. And this is more a workforce for the United Nations and partnerships. The NASA and the military, they're already working together. When they're launching stuff in the moon and it's landing and the military comes and get it to make sure it doesn't pollute the ocean. This is huge. It seems this is amazing, this kind of collaboration, because now there is a consciousness behind the technology. The engineering is not just science on one side and the hippies on the other side and consciousness. You know, when I was at the university, this was always my thing. I had to choose between literature. I wanted to be an archaeologist. And then I wanted to be an astronomer. But I always knew I wanted to travel. I wanted to speak languages. So I always had to choose. It was languages or science. So you're right away when you're 17, you're put in a box. You're a scientist or you're a world traveler and hippie, you know. But so the roads that went this way now are starting to come back together, you know, the alliance. So that's my purpose. That's my goal, and that I would like to bring. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye. And one more thing also, I'm sorry, I forgot to say that I have about 200s. I have a lot of artworks in great quality, in digital pictures that I can bring also for the United Nations, that you could use for your social media, for the Awake at Night magazine, all the publications, for backgrounds, for flyers. These are all painted in this Aboriginal technique of Dottism. Of course, I didn't even mention my own art, you know, but all this is things that promote the indigenous art, and that is an alliance, you know, between the contemporary styles of a home. You see, with the chandelier, for example, if you see my living room, you see I have a farm table. It's a farm table. When I moved in, I had this giant gold chandelier, and it wasn't really my style. So I decided to start doing this mix of styles, right? Something very rural, natural, you know, and ancient, with the symbol of the sun, with the new contemporary metallic color. These are metallic paint as well. I could show you also from closer. I'm sorry, the camera. You see, these are all made with an acrylic brush, a tiny brush, an acrylic paint, all handmade. This one took me about a month, an entire month to make. And I have them all in high quality digital pictures. I have another one right here. Okay, so now we're like family, right? This is the fourth video, so I'm giving you a tour. This is the sigils. Sigils are very interesting because it's like, it works on the subconscious. So the publicity does this all the time. They use symbols and colors and messages in their advertisement that just work in the subliminal. And the concept is that because you don't know what it means, or you don't really pay attention to it, like for example, you pass in front of a panel every day, you know, and you're not paying attention to it. So your mind doesn't block it for example, when you come into a store and the vendor comes to you and he says, "Can I help you?" Right away, you're going to block. You're like, no, leave me alone. I don't want, I don't want you to try to sell me something. It's already this block, Oh my God, I see an advertisement. Oh my God, this is cultural. Oh, they're trying to put some ideas in my head. Oh, or even not negative, but you have the mind that's putting a barrier. And by using sigils, it means you don't understand it. So you don't have this barrier of the mind, and it just gets printed in your subconscious. So it works at the soul level, from heart to heart, the heart of the artist, the energy of the painting, to the soul level. So teaching also people, the indigenous, the Peruvian in the Andes, they do that all the time. Like you see their art like this one, you see, and it's full of everything has a meaning. You see, this is from the Inca calendar, all these shapes like that. The flowers, this is the special flowers from the Titicaca Lake as well. And this is from the classes I did with my son. We used to do classes for kids at the farm and teach spirit animals, you see. So we have a little collection. Take that, Bowser. This is Mario. This is him trying to use a compass. But children are also very important. So the Inca trilogy, you see, with the snake, the condor, and the puma. This is a Nazca line. He's very knowledgeable of that. And let me show you some others. So yes, they do that all the time in the Andes. They put all their symbols in those fabrics and stuff. This is called the Unalome. The Unalome symbol is a very good symbol to visualize your journey. So if someone is in a bad place mentally, for example, you can help them visualize that to say, okay, now you're in a spiral. You see, you learn from your mistake, you learn from your evolution, you evolve, but you're never back to the starting line. It's not like a circle. You keep evolving and you grow, and then you learn to get out of that loop, and you start, the twists and turns of life until you learn to get out of these fluctuating emotions faster, to recenter until finding your center. And then this is when you bloom, to the final point of enlightenment. So then why is this important? Because once you have this symbol, I tell everybody, or even myself, when I'm lost or in my polarities, depression or whatever, I'm like, okay, I'm not down the hole. I'm in my twists and turns right now. Okay, I need to recenter. Where am I on the pattern? Okay, and this is why also I wrote the book, to give patterns like that in people's mind, so they can remember to recenter. They can remember, where am I on my journey? So very simple that this you can apply to any area of life, any field of expertise. This is the flower of life. So the other painting I just showed you, it wasn't made by me, it was made by one of my best friends during a workshop that we did together. She came to my house and she painted that, the Unalome one, that is very beautiful. And this one is the flower of life. The flower of life, so this is from my article about science, right? The geometric shape of the microcosm and the macrocosm. This is the essence of life, right? The mitosis, when the cells divide in your body and reproduce and expand to create life. So when you're doing a project, for example, you visualize the flower of life, you have the seed of life, and then you have the flower of life, and then you have the fruit of life. When is it that you're planting the seed of your project? When is it that you're creating your project, the flower of life? When is it that you gather the fruit of your labor, the fruit of life? Then once it's done, where is it that you create the Metatrons cube with the connections, right? The network. So all these symbols, they have a meaning that can help people situate themselves. So when we're doing the workshop, we paint this kind of stuff. So it helps them then in their everyday life. Oh, you have a big project now, you want to create something new, you're gonna paint the flower of life, okay? Or now you just created your business, it's ready to go, but you don't have a network. You need to network and connections. You're going to pay in the Metatrons cube, because the connections between all the circles is the Metatrons cube. So this is energetic as well. They're like little talisman, like magic, right? The magic of the shamans that you're bringing into your decoration, into your home every day. Like if you're waking up in the morning and you look at yourself in the mirror and you feel, I didn't get dressed today, my hair is bad, you're not going to be confident during the day. You're going to feel down. But if you wake up and you're like, oh, you just got new hair, you just did your makeup, and someone gave you a new jewelry, you feel more beautiful, you feel more confident. And when you're in a meeting with someone, you feel more confident to step up than if you have, a bump, red on your nose, or I don't know, or something you're uncomfortable with, or you feel tired, you have like your eyes like that. There's no stereotypes, I'm just taking an example, but you're feeling sick or whatever, you're not going to feel confident in a meeting to step up and be like, no, because you feel like other people, they're looking at you, or things like that. So it's the same, because it's engraved in our own system, it resonates with us. It's like a mirror of ourselves. So energetically, this is very important to surround ourselves and our decoration with energetic symbols like that. So yeah, so sorry, it's very long, but this is the kind of things I talk about when I'm doing the trainings and what we're painting, and we can open up to any topics as well. For women, they can talk about what's going on in a household. With scientists, we can talk about, these energies of the flower of life and how to recode the water, or how to do gravitation and levitation formulas and stuff. So it's very, very interesting, and I wish to bring our networks together, to make it manifest. All right, bye.